Hi, I'm Nick from BikeWorks in Gainesville, Florida, and today I'm going to go over how to do a flat repair. Tools you're going to need for this flat repair are 2 tire levers, a new tube, and a pump. We're just going to flip the bike upside down instead of use a repair stand. As we flip it over, you want to be careful not to scratch the seat or the shift levers. Ideally, you would do this on grass instead of pavement. When replacing the rear tube, you want to make sure to shift down to the smallest cog. That way it gets the derailleur out of the way. Next, you're going to want to open up your brake lever here. That way your wheel will slide out nice and easy. Next, you'll open the quick release, which is basically pulling the lever out and pulling the wheel up out of the dropouts. As you pull up, you might have to move the chain out of the way. Once the wheel is off, you're going to want to remove the nut that holds the valve stem. Next, you're going to want to take your 2 tire levers, and going opposite the valve stem, you will start prying the bead off of the tire. Notice on the tire lever there's a hook end and another hook end. Starting away from the valve stem, hook one end under the bead and then the other around the spoke. Use about the space of another spoke and hook the other tire lever underneath the bead and do the same thing. This time you should be able to just slide it around and take that tire off. Take the tube out of the tire. Keep in mind the orientation of the valve stem and run your fingers along the inside of the tire to check for any debris, sharp objects that may have caused the flat. You want to be careful here. If it's sharp glass or a piece of metal, it might poke your fingers. If you locate the cause of the flat, make sure you remove it, or else you risk the chance of it causing another flat. With a new tube, it's easier to put a little bit of air in it so that it will have shape. To do that, make sure that the valve is open and then simply blow in it. Once it has shape, you're able to put it inside the tire, much easier than a tube without air in it. To begin, you want to locate the label on the tire and line up the valve with that label. Once there, simply put the tube inside the tire and then grab your rim. If it is directional, which it would say on the side of the tire somewhere, make sure you have the correct direction. Then put the valve stem in the hole and work one side of the bead around the rim. Then, working opposite the valve, seat the other side. Tuck the tube in to make sure that it doesn't get pinched. You want to make sure that your valve is straight. If it's cocked, it's possible that you'll incur another flat. It's much safer to use your hands to install the tire. Some people like to use levers to do that last little bit, but they run the risk of pinching the tube, and then they'll have to start the process all over again. Once the tube is in and the tire is seated, you want to put the nut back on the valve stem. Some people don't like it, but it helps to make sure that the valve stem doesn't pop up inside the rim when you put the pump on the valve. Before we reinstall the wheel, we have to air up the tube. To air up the tube, we have to determine what size chuck to use and what sort of valve stem we have. Here I have a Schrader and I have a Presta. This chuck has both Schrader and Presta. Some chucks have a universal head which will work on both Presta and Schrader. People often ask about tire pressure. Your tire pressure will be printed on the side of your tire. Now we're ready to inflate the tube. Hold above the stem, place the chuck onto the stem, and then flip the lever. Once it's flipped, begin inflating the tube. Once inflated to the proper pressure, we have to remove the chuck, flip the lever back down, and pull straight down. Don't be alarmed at the little bit of air that comes out when you remove the chuck from the valve stem. That's just residual air within the pump. To reinstall the wheel, want to make sure that the chain rests on the smallest cog, pull on the back of the derailleur, and drop the wheel down into the dropouts. Finally, you want to tighten the quick release. When you tighten it, you want it tight enough that as you push it, it leaves an imprint on your palm. Flip your brake lever back to closed. Spin the wheel to make sure that it's centered in the dropouts and not binding on the brakes. That concludes our field flat repair. If you have problems and you're in Gainesville, come on by to Bike Works and we'll give you a hand with a flat or any other repair. If you're outside of Gainesville, contact your local bicycle shop.